Hello and welcome to the expansion room. I'm glad that we're back. And this is the space for deep healing, clarity, and growth. And so today's topic is really in line with that. We'll be talking about spirituality today. More specifically, what is spirituality? A lot more people are using that word rather than religious or religion. And so I wanted to allow for a couple of episodes where I take a deeper dive into spirituality and how it can bring about better well-being and improve our mental health. So when I think about spirituality, I think of it as deeper meaning, like the search for deep meaning, connection, practices that help us to feel more grounded and connected to who we really are. And today, my guest is John Paul Anderson, and he is going to share a conversation with me about this important topic and share in a later segment what brought him to the search for spirituality and what helped him to create this platform called Retune Me. John Paul, could you share a little bit about your background? And then we'll move into what is this definition of spirituality?
Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. So yeah, my name's John Paul Anderson. I have a PhD in physiology and pharmacology out of the University of Texas, and I mostly grew up actually Mormon, and then I went through an atheist phase, and now I'm in kind of a reawakening phase. But I know we're going to get through that later. But yeah, yeah, I found it's an evolutionary part of us and a necessity. But yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later.
Yeah, I like how you put that. I like how you put that for sure. I'm seeing and meeting more and more people who identified as atheist or agnostic and find themselves on the path because they let go of definitions that were given to them or handed down to them.
Definitely.
And I think that's part of the key, right? Is the letting go of these old ideas or ideas maybe that were not yours in the first place, you know? So we'll talk about how spirituality also differs from religion in this episode as well, because that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah, big part. So in defining spirituality, I of course went to the books to make sure I have the right words as it's defined in the kind of a dictionary sense of the meaning. Spirituality is defined as a broad and highly personal concept, generally understood as a search for meaning, purpose, and a sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves, right? Something that maybe we can't even define and put into words. Most people use the word God or higher power, right? But for some people, those words have too much baggage to them,
yeah,
right? And so they may use other terms like universe or universal truth. For some people, it's nature, like
yeah.
vast outdoors, and I totally get that. Um, or the deep inner self, right? I've also, for myself, started to use the term higher self,
I
right?
like that.
So
Yeah,
those are all terms that are kind of floating around in the ether. For some people, I've heard them describe that as it just is, like it needs no definition, right? It just is. And so I'm like, now that kind of leaves it broad and open.
yeah. Very metaphysical.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I think there will probably be some future episodes where I take the deep dive into some of the metaphysics.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have you back for one of those. That is like right now my favorite subject. A
Go
client,
super deep.
Yeah. A client asked me recently a deep metaphysical question, and man, we went down a complete rabbit hole.
Yeah, those are my favorite kind.
Indeed, indeed. So that's the kind of working definition that we're going to be working with today. And some of the aspects of spirituality includes the fact that it's very individualized or subjective, right?
Yep.
When people use the term spiritual or spirituality, there's no one to say what their experience is or is not. All
Yeah.
right.
It's very personal.
Very personal indeed. Um, it's an inner journey focused on the personal experience, beliefs, direction, unmitigated connection to the divine. The other aspect is focus, meaning, and purpose. People often either stumbling on or finding their purpose on a path of spirituality. And that could literally be the work they do in the world, right? I am a preacher's kid. I grew up in preacher's households. I was in church every Sunday and sometimes on Wednesday and Friday as well, and for events sometimes on a Saturday. And so I kind of knew what religion said about God. And there are people in my family who have moved up into ministry. And my whole thing was, I'm not going into ministry. That is not my thing. That is not for me. I'm not here for that. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to be a doctor. And somewhere in that first semester of sophomore year, I took a class that made me go, hmm. And I changed my major to religious studies.
That's funny. Came back for you, huh?
It did. It
Anton.
did in a big way. And still, I was like, nope, I'm not going to be, a minister or a pastor of any kind. And when later working, in the real world after graduating, I started looking for a master's degree. Nothing. And I knew I wanted to do counseling, but none of the programs near me resonated until I found the pastoral counseling degree. And I was like, oh, and it all just kind of came together in this interesting package.
Followed the path of your parents you so desperately tried to avoid.
Indeed, indeed. So I did not start a church, but my work is definitely my ministry.
It's
And I wouldn't
two
have
birds
thought
with
it.
one stone. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Exactly. So focus, meaning, and purpose. And then another aspect of spirituality is that it's broad, right? When we think of religion, there's a structure and limits. And when people use the word or terminology of spiritual or spirituality, it is broad and it's inclusive. And it's really hard to say to another person, well, what you're doing is not really spiritual
Yeah,
because it's so subjective, right?
yeah,
So,
definitely not something you should try and bucket spirituality and non-spirituality. They often intertwine and enhance each other, interestingly enough. But
absolutely. Absolutely. So, and then the last aspect is the sense of personal growth. I have never met a person who identified as spiritual who did not feel they were on a path of spiritual growth, personal growth,
yeah,
which changes everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's helps you get out of bed in the morning, right?
it does.
Yeah,
It does. It elevates us, I think. And I think for me, and this may be also for you, that personal growth spills into other aspects of your life, right? Spills into how you connect with the people that you love, maybe the people that you work with, friends, and in the kind of work you choose to do
yeah,
or the
yeah,
way you do so. Because you might already be in a path of work, but you may shift how you work.
Mhm.
to align with that growth.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will it depends on how strong your faith is, I guess, but
Yeah,
yeah, it'll influence everything about you. So
absolutely.
for me, I feel like I I have kind of a strange belief system, I guess. I kind of believe in something called the meta-organism. I don't know if you've
Mm,
believe or heard of that, but that we're all kind of cells in this giant body. That's the human race. And depending on how much we communicate with each other and how much love we give to certain people, it's the same thing as like cell to cell communication. And we're so connected to each other that, especially now with the internet and everything, it's
mm-hmm.
um it's something that you are almost the same organism, and
Yes.
you have similar thoughts. And I find more and more with strangers, I'm finishing their sentences and they're finishing mine, and so we're all kind of one big creature, the human species. And I feel like that helps influence my decision that if I'm hurting another person, it's like I'm hurting myself. So,
Yeah.
and I do that especially with my kids. I'm like, well, the more love and communication and um, cytokine signals I give them, to use the molecular biology term, which is
Yes.
basically love, uh, the more they'll grow and the happier they are. Well, whereas if you starve cells, if you send them bad signals, then they kind of rot and fade away. And so I feel like we're all just one big thing in this together. And
Absolutely.
yes, there's competition, but if you hurt another person, you're basically just damaging the body whole. So
Indeed. Kind of that collective consciousness.
the collective consciousness, I think we're pretty much there with how connected we are as a species. I think we're all kind of riding the same frequency these days, whether we like it or not. Oh,
Agreed. Agreed. What you were saying about the connection there reminded me of the research. I think it was in Japan with the water and speaking bad words or mean words to the water, kind words, loving words, and the effect that it had on the water.
resonated differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
There's something
one of
called
my favorites.
limbic resonance where you're actually syncing up with a person's like breath and heart rate and everything. And the closer you are, the more you sync up. So
Yes.
there's definitely auras and things like that. I think
Yeah.
ancestors felt it, but they didn't know how to explain it, and we're kind of figuring it out the more sensitive our equipment gets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, great. Well, we're about to take a break. And so when we come back, we're going to be talking more about what this thing is called spirituality and why people are seeking spirituality more now than religion. So come on back.
Great.
Are you a conscious co creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach, Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to the Expansion Room. And today we are talking about spirituality and what it is and how it can benefit our mental health and overall well-being. And my guest is John Paul Anderson. And in the first segment, we talked a little bit about the definition of spirituality. And I would be remiss to not give the definition of religion before we move forward. So that going back to the dictionary, so to speak, religion is defined as an organized, institutionalized system of beliefs, practices, and traditions. And it provides a structure, a structured framework for understanding the divine and one's place in the world. And what we're finding with more and more people who are seeking spirituality rather than religion these days is that they want to have a more broad experience of the divine and not someone else's experience. When we look at almost all of the religions of the world, each of them were started by someone or a group of people that had a specific experience, right? And then eventually it gets codified and institutionalized and then handed down with what now a lot of people use the word dogma. And so people are trying to let that go and find their own paths. And so what do you think about that, John Paul?
Yeah, I think religion is unfortunately a necessary evil, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I feel a lot of people use it in nefarious ways, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, uh, it's kind of what brought us together as a species, I feel. And I feel most countries, cultures, societies benefit a lot from it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there's a lot of evil done in the name of religion, there's a lot of necessary good that gets done. There's this book
Mm-hmm.
called Sapiens that talks a little bit about it, but he talks about the shared myth. I don't want to go into what's true and what's not. That those are his words, not mine. But the
Mm-hmm.
shared myth is what really brought people together who otherwise would just try and kill each other and take their resources. And so I feel like I didn't feel it as strongly when I was kind of single, but now as a parent, I get it. I get why
Yeah.
religion exists because it's like, oh, I know that person has the same beliefs as me. They can watch my kids, right? I know
Right.
I know them whether from church or a gathering or something. And
Yep.
so it's a necessity.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's spirituality has to be tied into that because you have to believe in something, I guess, to get together
Right.
as a community. And so, but a lot of times it's been used for evil and it's unfortunate, but I think, religious people generally they're happier and they have more kids. And so they're always going to outbreed the atheists either way. And so
That is true.
it's it's a necessary, I don't want to say evil, but it's just a necessary part of being a human, right?
Yeah. And
We
I
have
think with the rise of spirituality, when people are able to pair their expansiveness of their spirituality with the religion that they've chosen, hopefully as an adult, right?
yeah,
It becomes a bigger experience. Religion becomes a bigger experience.
yeah.
I think there's still too many people who use religion or the practices of religion in a kind of default rather than taking their own inner deep dive to know, number one, does this really resonate with me, or is this something I do because I was raised to do this?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's the thing.
it's hard to tell the difference, but
Hmm.
spirituality works okay on your own, like if you're out in nature or something like that. But
Yeah.
it only really starts to kick in when you're in a big old group, like
Yes.
whether you're in the um one of those non-denominational churches where the music's going and people are
Yeah.
waving their hands in the air
Yep.
or saying prayer together. That's really when spirituality kind of comes out and shines. And
Hmm.
um, like I said, I think it's a necessary part of who we are, and I think we evolved this way. I think people who weren't religious, like I said, they were less happy, they didn't breed, and they were off in the woods and got killed by a tiger or something.
Maybe,
Uh,
right?
Whereas the religious people, they stuck together, and
Yeah.
so
It
uh,
does bring about a deeper sense of connection and community for a lot of people.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's really no replacement for it.
Yeah.
There's, there's secular groups and Freemasons, although Freemasons kind of a religious thing as well.
Hmm.
Um, but there's really nothing else out there. And so
Yeah.
I feel like in order to feed that spiritual side, you need to have some sort of religion. And it's I've seen people turn to drugs and alcohol and things like that trying to fill it. But even as an agnostic or an atheist or something like that, you need to find something. And it doesn't matter what it is necessarily, as long as it's not evil, but whether it's some kind of nature loving group or
Hmm.
because it's in us, it's inherent. I think they're going to find the gene for it at some point. I'm not joking. I think it's there. And I know they've done some experiments where they've like shocked the brain a little bit and it shuts
Hmm.
off your religious side, which is crazy, right?
Ooh,
You become like more cynical and atheist and stuff like that. Some
wow.
people attribute DMT, the chemical in your brain.
Yeah,
Some people take it as ayahuasca and they have this spiritual experience, like
yeah,
that's the spirit chemical or
yep,
something like that. But
yeah.
yeah, like I said, I don't profess to know which religion is true or not, or even if it matters. I think people just need to accept that it's a part of who you are as a person and
Yeah.
find something that you can accept and believe to a certain extent at least and go with it. Otherwise, there's nothing else to fill it and you're missing out on a key part of what it means to be a human.
I would agree with that. I know my partner and I have had many conversations over the years about this shift away from organized religion, some of the benefits of that, but also because people are going more to spirituality, but also the downfall of that is that lack of connection,
Yeah,
the lowering of morals that we're starting to see, the things that we're seeing in the news we never used to see before, like of how people treat one another.
no, definitely.
And we feel like there's this sense of moving away from religion, therefore also moving away from a moral code that we all used to kind of carry and agree with.
Yeah,
You know, every time I hear a story of a young person assaulting a senior citizen, I'm like, we never heard of things like that when we were growing up. We were all raised with this idea to respect your elders, right?
yeah. No, they
Just
need
these ways of treating one another seem to be kind of falling away.
I agree. And I think with whether it's school shootings or just general violence,
Hmm.
I do feel like whether it's the Christians or whoever, they're right. Maybe they're right for the wrong reasons, but
Hmm.
it's that community, if that fades and people start slipping through the cracks,
Yeah.
um, they become dark and strange and twisted. And
Hmm.
so, um, unless some secular prophet or something can come along and figure out a way for all the non-believers to unite and and not be forgotten. I feel like
Yeah.
we ignore religion and we ignore spirituality as a society at our peril. I feel like it's responsible for a lot of the rise in mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
It's the cause of a lot of drug use and people becoming outcasts. I think there's a Christian apologist named G.K. Chesterton. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but there's something called the Chesterton fence. And
Mm.
the analogy is a person walks up to a fence and he's like, "Oh, this fence is in everybody's way. Let's knock it down." But uh, before you knock down that fence, you should find out why that was there, right? And then the bulls all run out and then everything turns to chaos, right? But it's like, oh, I knocked down this fence. You're welcome, everybody. But
Right.
these things, they evolved, for lack of a better word. I use evolve way too much because I'm a biologist, but over, thousands of years, maybe even tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, these religions as kind of a bulwark to our greater evils.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just throw it all in the trash for the sake of enlightenment, we don't know what's on the other side of that fence, right? We don't know what's going to come rushing through once we tear down all the religions, all spirituality. What if there's nothing else there?
Right.
And or what if there's evil there? And I think we're actually finding there is evil there, and whether it's the Bible or the Quran, they're warning they're warning us about it. They're like, hey, if you ignore all this stuff, the other side is evil. And I think we're starting to see that, like hopelessness, despair,
Mm-hmm.
where we're losing what we evolved to be.
There we go.
Yeah,
A sense of our humanity
yeah, who we
and
are.
yeah, and the divine that goes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We're about to take our next break. And so when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about um, this idea of like this move towards spirituality and how religion affects our mental health. But before even that, we'll hear more of John Paul's story and how he got here. So come on back.
Misalignment within your sales team or with the client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to the expansion room, and today's topic is on spirituality and what it is, and some of what it is not. And my guest today is John Paul Anderson, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you got here, John Paul. Like, where did your path begin to get you here?
Yeah, so I grew up Mormon. They don't like to use the word Mormon anymore. They like including the word Christ. So Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Most people know them as Mormon. I was a missionary in Japan for a couple of years. Um, Came across a lot of different religions over there, Shinto, Buddhist, that kind of thing. And I came back and I had a bit of a falling away from Mormonism, and it was primarily due to their history. Um, they were a product of their time, unfortunately, just like a lot of religions are. They tried to teach what was moral and ethical at the time, but if you preach the words of their prophet nowadays, you'd immediately be labeled probably a pretty bad person. At least some of their teachings. Most of it was good, but some of it is just monstrous. But anyway, so I had a bit of a falling away for a few years. And I wouldn't say I despised the religion. I grew up pretty good life because of it, and I was happy and good childhood. But I never really got it. I feel like I never really understood why people were getting these feelings. I thought I was born without the religious gene because everybody was having all these spiritual experiences, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on here? I don't feel the Holy Spirit or none of these things." And so uh, later, I ended up doing a holotropic breathwork practice,
Hmm.
and that did it. I was like, "Oh, I see." And I like stared into the void, and there was like a godlike creature on the other side, and all this stuff. And I was like, "Oh." For me, it just takes a little bit more to get those spiritual juices flowing. And I don't think I really saw God or anything like that, but I got it. I was like, oh, and it was a good feeling, right? And
Yeah.
I felt like it opened up different horizons, different ways of thinking. Probably a certain part of my brain maybe just needed enough blood flow to open up. And so I do think that stuff can be dangerous though, because it puts you in a very susceptible state of mind where whatever that person might be saying or whatever you happen to be thinking at the time can really get embedded in you.
Hmm.
So I think that's what stare into the void long enough, the void starts to stare back. I think that's where that expression comes from.
Yes.
And probably what Paul was talking about staring into the mirror darkly.
Mm.
Eventually you start to see things. The brain starts creating things. But anyway, so I ended up exploring spirituality more, and I've interviewed dozens of people like, oh, this is their experience, this is their experience. I see what's going on. And so yeah, I created this website called Retune, which is basically it's a combination of two words, ritual and tuning, where you use breath work, meditation, and sound frequencies to kind of open up that part of your brain and become receptive to change and improving yourself. So I there's actually a ton of scientific research on breath work and
Yeah.
sound frequencies and that kind of stuff. And so what I did is I combined all these different things and I put them into a program, and it's on my website. But basically, yeah, if you're struggling with depression or anxiety. I can't say that this stuff will cure you because it won't, but it will kind of open up your mind to a point where you can kind of figure it out for yourself. Like the vasculature in your brain, you'll get more blood flow,
Yeah.
and parts of your brain that would be otherwise blocked, ideally will open up, and you can say, "Oh, aha, like this is what's hurting me. This is what I'm holding on to." And a lot of times you can kind of figure these things out yourself. And that's really the only way
Hmm.
true healing begins. Talking it out with a person helps, but change comes from within, to say a banal phrase. But that's the idea behind it. And it's for religious people, I suppose, but I think it's more for non-religious people and people who maybe like me who didn't have those spiritual experiences and they felt left out and those type of
Hmm.
things. And so with this, maybe you'll be like me and you'll do this and you're like, "Oh, I see. I get
I
it."
get it.
I, and you'll get that surge, that rush, and and you're kind of tapping into something that you can't tap into otherwise. So that's
Yeah.
the whole point of the website. And then what I'm also doing is I go around and I interview different people for my podcast as well, where I've talked with like Hare Krishna leaders and Druids and Vikings and all these people who, they sound like a something that maybe died a long time ago with their religions and things, but there's a lot of ancient wisdom in there that's fascinating,
Yeah.
and these forms of spirituality that evolved. And I interview them, and a lot of them have made content for my website as well.
Mm.
So you can experience different things like Chinese Qigong and why that helps people. And I include a lot of scientific literature behind it. What I do with it is I try and separate the truly kooky stuff. I mean, like you said, if it works for you, it works, but um, scientifically backed, I guess, is what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. So there's some things that the scientific method doesn't work for, charging crystals, that kind of stuff. But some things it does work, and it's
That's right.
repeatable and it's evidence based. And so with my website, I only put things on there that have, NIH peer reviewed stuff behind it, so people can actually trust it and know that, I'm not trying to scam them or give them fake spiritual experiences. It's something that's, evidence based, if that's
Absolutely.
even possible. But the ones that do have some evidence, I've brought together and put on my website. So
Wonderful. And that I think is so key because we're living in a time where people want real information.
yeah,
And so they're looking for the scientifically backed, evidence-based kind of work.
yeah,
And so I'm glad that you shared that piece because that helps for people who are a little bit more skeptical,
yeah.
right?
And they should be skeptical. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff out there that, it leans too heavily on the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like a lot of this spiritual stuff, it does lean on the placebo effect a bit, and it's kind of like hypnosis, right? The only way
Mm-hmm.
you can be hypnotized is if you believe it. And there's something in pharmacology called the open placebo effect,
Mm-hmm.
where basically, even if the person believes that it's fake, the drug will actually work better if they believe that it's real. And so, even though they know it's fake, sorry. So, if they know it's fake, but you tell the person, "Hey, this is real," and then they believe it, it'll open up your vasculature, your blood flow, and the drugs will work better. I don't know if it's kind of a strange concept to understand, but it's like if you believe something will work, even though it's a sugar pill, it still will work better. Kind
Yeah.
of strange, right? So, and that's how a lot of these practices work, where it's placebo effect. But if you add the placebo effect plus, like breath work or meditation or that kind of stuff, where that person believes it will help them, it will actually help them,
Yeah.
right? So you can't help people who don't think it will work. And so it's fine to be skeptical, but at the same time, I feel like if you truly want the best out of it, just believe it will work.
That's it.
And then the cortisol levels will drop and your blood will flow better and you'll actually get the benefits from these different things. And it's not just meditation, that's, drugs,
Yeah.
relationships. I mean,
Yep.
human beings, we're strange creatures where we can almost influence our outcome just through beliefs. And
Yeah.
so
Our thoughts and our beliefs.
our
That
thoughts
is
and our
going to be a
beliefs.
future episode as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I
Because
probably
that's
did a
stepping into some of the metaphysics behind.
yeah, I probably did a terrible job explaining it, but it's the same thing with my website. I encourage people, like if you're really trying to fix yourself, you need to believe that this stuff will work, and
Mhm.
then you kind of are receptive to it and you open up your mind, and it will help more. You don't If you go into it and you're like, oh, this is all nonsense, it's not going
Mhm.
to work as well, because humans are human and we block things that we don't think are good and we accept things that we think are good. And so whether it's doesn't matter what it is, if it's my program, if it's your therapy sessions, whatever it
Mhm.
is, you have to go in with an open heart and an open mind and thinking that it will actually
100%.
help you. But if you don't, you're not going to get anything out of it. And so you should be a yes man or a yes woman, like that Jim Carrey movie. And what's the worst that could happen? So
Right.
that's
Exactly.
that's how we are as people, and that's how I approach
Mhm.
it with a scientific mind, uh,
Wonderful.
and how the placebo effect is so real.
Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for sharing how you started Retune. How has your understanding of spirituality evolved since that moment that you had that breathwork practice before the
Oh,
workplace?
um, I think being a lot more willing to accept that people's experiences are real, I guess.
Mm,
Because like when I went through my atheist phase, I was kind of a know-it-all douchebag and was like, "Oh, that's not real. You're just a crazy person." But I feel like I'm kind of past that, and I do acknowledge that people have these experiences and they're extremely personal and they're life-changing to them. And whether they're scientifically provable or not, it doesn't matter. To
there
them,
we go.
they
Yeah.
experience it and it's real, and there's no reason to, dunk on it, to talk like the Gen Zers. It's it's who they are, and it's who we are as people. We need that. We need those spiritual experiences,
Yeah.
whether they're, scientific or not. So,
Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly agree. The research has shown that spirituality, even connected to religion or not, helps us to build resilience. It helps us to manage anxiety and reduce stress. It helps us to lift out of depression and helps us to create meaning for our lives in this world. I think it also helps us to not just see the bad or what everybody calls like the craziness of this world, but to also tune into what's good. It's always there. But if we're only focused on the bad, then that's all we see, right?
yeah,
But I think spirituality and religion helps us to then say, oh, right, lift your head up a little bit and notice what else is around you,
yeah,
and that's one of the, I think, biggest benefits um to mental health. And what it's funny, I've been a therapist for 22 years. As my client population gets older, right, or I attract older clients, I get more people who are walking down the spiritual path, stepping either back into religion or finding one that resonates with them more.
yeah,
When I only saw people who were, say, in their 20s, maybe early 30s, everybody was an atheist, everybody was agnostic,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
everybody was leaving their own religion.
right,
Even myself, right? I grew up in the Pentecostal faith, but there was a point where I just backed way off because I too didn't have the same kinds of experiences that people in church had. It took me going down the path of yoga philosophy, stepping into taking the deep dive and getting trained as a yoga teacher, yoga therapist, meditation therapist, all the things for me to go, oh, I get what they were saying
yeah.
because I could
That's funny.
see from a different lens what it was all about,
Yeah,
and so that's the shift. And but we all have to make that trek for
yeah.
ourselves.
Find out what works for you. That
Absolutely,
work.
absolutely.
Everyone's different, so.
Indeed. So we're about to take our final break. And so when we come back, we're going to tie this all together and talk about some practical ways of bringing spirituality into or back into your life. So come on back and join us.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on TalkRadio.nyc.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, aka the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Mel Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to this episode on spirituality, what it is and what it's not. And we've had a really great conversation, John Paul. Thank you. I think we definitely want to tie this together for the audience and discuss like what are ways that people can actively bring a sense of spirituality into their lives and broaden basically their perspectives, right? And so for me, I know like I've already done a couple of episodes around mindfulness practices, including meditation, yoga, breath work. So I'm always advocating for those kinds of practices with my clients. But what are some others that come to your mind?
My favorite is nature. I went through a druid phase for a little bit, but
Nice.
it's the more I learned about it, it's not the less I wanted to do it, the more I realized that it was mostly just a new age religion. I guess there's no real surviving records of druidry. It's all
Yeah.
third party accounts by the Romans who thought they were child sacrificing monsters. But yeah, at the same time, I feel like getting in touch with nature is probably the quickest and easiest way to do it. Um, go for a walk and in your most beautiful place you can find, and really breathe in the spirits of the forest. You don't have to go full on crazy about it, but there's something about it where you're happier outside. and
Yes.
and most religions back in the day, they worshipped the moon or the sun or the
Mm-hmm.
trees. And when you're out in nature enough, you kind of see why. You're like, oh, this is where you're happy. And so that would be the easiest way. You could go to my website. That would fix it. Just but
Absolutely.
I mean that's a good tool for it. But you
Yeah.
know, there's a book I read called Improv, which talks about masks, and I I'm still struggling the best way to solve this problem, but it talks about how in acting they would wear masks and they would become that person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some African tribes and things who
Mm-hmm.
would attribute so much power to a mask that they would have to hide it, except for the ceremonies, because that mask could bring so much power. The point I'm getting to is sometimes maybe you have to wear a mask at first. So you go to, whether it's your local church or something like that, and you can put on the mask of a believer
Mm-hmm.
in that church and feel the spirit self and your new self. But maybe start with something light, whether it's, going for a walk in nature, becoming a nature lover, or, universalist church where it's just, they believe in just about anything and they take the
Yeah.
good from everywhere. So maybe before full on jumping on into a hardcore religion, just do something, light and put on that mask for at least a moment while you're in there
Yeah.
and soak it all in and become a a follower at least for that session and feel what those other people are feeling at least during that time and be like, oh, this is what's going on here. And
Yeah.
like I said, that kind of stuff can be a little dangerous because you're looking into the void and the void will look back. But yeah, wear a mask at least for a little bit and then kind of open up to what spirituality is. And then when you find the thing that actually works for you, whether it's finding a yogi or breath
Mm-hmm.
work or things like that, you can recognize it and kind of accept it and have that become part of who you are.
Yeah. Beautifully said, because there was, when I was in school, undergrad, and had switched to religious studies, I got a chance to study almost every world religion.
Oh,
And I came away from that experience understanding that there's a thread that runs through a thread of truth that runs through every single religion,
yep.
every single one. And so there's this saying that I now hear in my adulthood: all paths lead to the same place. And so, yeah, trying out the different religions or different practices to see which one resonates for you is so key. It's so key.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
What,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, so yeah, so stepping into like these kinds of spaces to see what works for you, adding meditation or yoga to your life, breath work, prayer. I don't think we talk enough about prayer, but
Yeah.
prayer is important.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of
Mhm.
scientific benefits to prayer, and
Yeah,
it's kind of akin to meditation. It's kind of a
absolutely.
similar type thing. And it's something that, because we're ritualistic creatures, it's something you have to do regularly
Yeah,
to get the benefit from it. Otherwise, just every now and again, it doesn't really do anything. It's like practicing guitar or something.
yeah,
Like you practice guitar once a month, nothing's going to happen, but you do it every day, and then you start to see the benefits. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. So those are some of the keys. And then, yes, definitely getting out in nature. There is nothing like, for me, walking in a forest or walking by water.
yeah,
So the beach is my happy place. But also, as I've grown older, taking a trail in the forest
yeah,
and without earbuds, without an audio book in my ears, without music in my ears, and just listening to the wind rustling through trees.
yeah, yeah.
That does it for me.
That's where we belong. I
Yeah.
think being indoors all the time, we've sacrificed mental health for comfort.
We really have, and the research bears that out. The
Yeah,
research has totally borne that out. All the things that I've been reading, the fact that we've all become indoor cats
yeah,
instead of outdoor cats is
really bad.
affecting our mental health.
Yeah,
I did an episode recently on just the benefits of the sun itself, getting out into the sun and taking a good 15-minute, 20-minute walk every morning or in
yeah,
the evenings, and what it can do for our mental health. So yes, I think that is very key. All
yeah.
right.
I agree. I feel like yeah, we're not getting swarmed by mosquitoes or eaten by lions or freezing to death, but so we have to do our best to get out there and be what we evolved to be in.
Absolutely.
Because yeah, if you go against nature and what you are as a person, Mother Nature punishes you with depression and sadness until you do what you're supposed to be doing, which is,
Mhm.
being out in nature and doing what Mother Nature wants you to do. Um, you're gonna pay the price for fighting who you are.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, spirituality, I think I want to leave it with spirituality is not a rigid path,
No,
right? It is a flexible resource that enhances our mental health and well-being. And so if we can think about it in those terms and step towards something that resonates for us, we can enhance our own lives. So thank you for joining me for this conversation, John Paul. And I hope that each person listening to this conversation finds a piece that resonates for them and that they can then step into something new for themselves.
Yeah.
Can you share how people can reach you? What website or social?
Yeah, so my website's retune.me, ritune.me. And then, like I said, I've interviewed a lot of different spiritual leaders, as well as, witches. And I've kind of kept a completely open mind, and it's really helped me out. And so, my podcast is called Empirical Enlightenment, and it's on YouTube, Spotify, all that. So you can just Google that and find me and find all sorts of interesting interviews with the entire spectrum of spirituality. I'm very open-minded, unless it deals with like drinking blood or something. But
Exactly.
no, most of these groups, they've just been demonized by other religions trying to stop them from stealing their members and converts and stuff. And it's all, I wouldn't say it's all similar, but like you said, it's on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
It's the same frequency that people are tapping into with just different methods.
Indeed. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us here on the Expansion Room. If this conversation resonated for you and you feel like it would be of benefit to someone else, please pass it on to a friend or family member. And if the content that we talk about on these shows and these episodes resonate for you, please subscribe on whichever platform you're watching or listening. And join us next week for another topic here at the Expansion Room. Take care. Have a good week.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on TalkRadio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.